Hello, welcome to the August 28th, 2026 Club Cubase livestream. My name is Greg Undo, and I'm the host of the livestream today. If you have not attended a livestream before, how it works is you can just simply ask questions in the live chat field, or questions can be submitted in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. When asking questions, it's always helpful if you could specify which particular program it is. So if it's Cubase, we can go to so with Cubase, if it's Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro, what version number it is, if it's 13, 14, 15. Also, if which operating system that you're running, that information is helpful. We should, and if you, when asking a question, if you don't see an immediate response, if we could avoid asking the same questions repeatedly, we'll go through all the questions chronologically as asked. After that, we will, several hours after the live stream ends, we will have an index that's posted with timestamps that will be pinned to the top of the comments field that you can navigate to. And if you wanted to search for topics that have been covered in previous live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com. And you want to thank Jan from Stockholm for creating that site. We have two people that serve as moderators, Jazz Dude and Agent K. They're not Steinberg employees. They do it to make it a better community experience. We also want to, so we'll give, special thanks to them, and we'll extend additional gratitude to Jazz Dude for his help with the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord, which is a great place to actually go and find different links and downloads. And so once again, my name is Greg Undo. I'm going to just open up. Today is our last live stream of the month. We will be having a Zoom. So I pasted the link in the details, but let me just see if we come over here. Let's see if we edit the meeting. So for when sometimes the chat doesn't get posted immediately after, but this is the meeting ID. This will be just live. It's not going to be recorded. If you're watching this live stream after August 28th, this may not make sense. But for those that want to attend the Zoom meetup, we will have a special guest, Bob Bullock, so we can see the meeting ID and the passcode here. So Bob Bullock is a well-known recording engineer who's worked probably in industry for maybe 50 years or so. Was an assistant engineer in a lot of, I think, on 4 Steely Dan albums. He was if you've ever heard the story of how Fleetwood Mac lost all the fidelity of their drums and had to transfer the drums from a safety backup, like a safety backup multi-track, and transfer it in sync. I believe Bob was the guy who actually did that. He's also worked with Mutt Lange on Shania Twain's huge album. Worked with George Strait, Reba McEntire. He lives in Nashville, so I'm looking forward to everyone meeting him. One other quick programming note, I will be traveling to Hamburg next week, so our next live stream will be 2 weeks from today. So I believe that's September 11th. So I was trying to see if I could work out doing a live stream from Hamburg, but the times just weren't working. So we'll be back on September 11th with our normal schedule. So with that, let's go ahead and begin. All right, so we see from Onan 4453, hi, use Cubase 15. I have a problem with audio. Says when I dropped, never match with the tempo. Use music mod and freak the audio and put a manual tempo and audio and nothing. All right, so when we have an audio file here, we'll just do like a brand new project. All right, so there's two. So let's take a quick look at how we could do this. So let's say I'm over. So I'm going to take a listen to some drum loops here. So let's just say, okay, my project tempo is at 120 beats a minute. So when I go to look through some drum loops, I could just come over here and let's say, and a lot of times we could see that, a number in the drum loop. So we could say this drum loop is probably going to be 175 beats a minute. This one will be 164 beats a minute. All right, now as I drag an audio file into my project, this will play back by default at the same tempo. So it's not really matching our tempo. Now, as we're previewing loops, what we could do is put it into musical mode. So now if I want to take that same audio loop and drag it into the project, we could just place it into musical mode. And when it's in musical mode, at this point, we can see that it's going to now align to the grid and speed. Now, you want to, so sometimes people will put the track in musical time base versus linear time base. So those are two separate things. So this could be with, like, as we change tempos, how the position of the event is changed. But make sure that when you select the event, that you see musical mode here. And as you do this, if it's still not working, it could be that the original audio file wasn't set for the correct tempo. So if I listen to an audio file here, let's say if I drag this file in, and we can see that we can now have this. So if we listen to a particular loop, we could say 4, 5. So if we want to just listen to like the number of beats in a particular loop, I will come over and we'll play this loop here, and we could count the number of beats. So let's say we're probably, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So we have 2 measures of 4/4 or 8 beats. So if you think that maybe the tempo is set incorrectly, what you could do is double click, and on the audio file that will launch a sample editor, you'll see a definition here. Here we could say, okay, it's going to be 2 bars long, or we could say it's 1 bar and 3 beats long, and this would automatically calculate the tempo for you. And then we could just check musical mode on the event here. So if you have kind of maybe the tempo is an incorrect value, sometimes people will record at one tempo and the audio may get tempo stamped at the wrong tempo. You could use the definition here to set the right tempo and put it into musical mode there. But once it's in musical mode, and you should see, if you don't see the musical mode turned on here in the info line, or if we go to the pool window, so once you open up the pool, you can see that you have musical mode directly there as well. You can just simply turn that on in the pool or from the info line. All right, so we see Cubase from Yazian, great to see you on. It says Cubase needs a free version like Spectral Layers Go and Wavelab Go. So, there are, those aren't free versions. Those are actually what we call OEM versions. So, companies will, buy a license and include that with their particular programs. And there is a program called Cubase LE, so they're not, Spectral Layers Go and Wavelab Go, you may get them free with the purchase of another product, but you don't have just a free version of that. And there is a Cubase LE that comes with third-party hardware, and a Cubase AI that comes with Yamaha manufactured hardware as well. All right, we see Jazz Dude sharing some links on Howling in 7. We see Klaus joining from Malmo, Sweden. Right, we see Michael Marshall joining from Somerset in the UK. Right, we see Stefan Larsson joining from Sweden. All right, great to see Jan from Stockholm is Cubase Index. Memento joining from Finland. Right, Mark Raven says it's a nice day there. He's been watching YouTube for hours, getting nothing done. It's up Friday, so it's okay. All right, we see Tim K is Sabertooth Bicycle joining from Zeist in the Netherlands. His cat Buddy is waving a paw hello to my cat Steven and Mark Raben's dog Stella. And we'll give Mark Raben, even when he's watching YouTube at home all day, not getting nothing done, we'll give a big woof to Stella, Mark Raben's dog. See, Tim K says he might be in and out. Let's get someone to come over in the middle. Ravens is excited to learn lots. Great. We see Del Sur Music joining from Chicago. Great to see you back. See, Mark Raven says, oh my God, 2 weeks. That's an absence. We'll have lots of questions by the next stream. So, all right, we see Beverly Beatty joining from Vancouver, Canada. See Tim Weinheimer from Mission Viejo. So Beverly wants some cowbell in the mix. Memento wants people to whack the like button. See Michael Teams joining from Weatherford, Texas. See Jan thanking Jazz Dude for the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord. Right, we see that Mark Raben's dog Stella's had some bananas and is very happy. All right, so we have Calote joining from Portugal. Great. So we see Jackie Bar says found the answer to 6.8 issue AI help. Cubase must be set to 84 beats per minute. Dotted quarter note. 1.5 quarter notes, 56. Dotted quarter note times 1.5 is 84. Yep. So I think that you could always use the Project Logical Editor. So this question was a few live streams ago, where if we have a tempo track and we need to convert it from a basis of a quarter equals like the tempo value of, let's say, 56, we could say a dotted quarter equals that. So we could have the pulse on 16th notes. So let's say if I add a tempo track and come here, so say we'll put in our tempo value of 56 beats a minute. So if we come over to our Project Logical Editor, we can say, let's take media type equals tempo. Then we're going to transform our tempo by, I think if we set it to trim, we could multiply by 1.5. So as we come over here, we can now just go directly from a dotted value in 4.4 for 6.8, where we have a dotted or just a quarter note value tempo, and now we could change this to a dotted quarter note value. So if you need to do that a lot and you don't feel like pulling out your calculator, for every tempo scenario. Just say we want to transform tempo information. We choose trim, may not seem like the best choice. And then we can multiply by 1.5. So where we had our tempo value of 56, as soon as I do this, we can now, and you can see that the tempo value here has changed to 84 beats per minute. All right, we see Rick from Bratman Studio joining. Says it'll be 100 degrees in Whittier, California, where he lives. All right, so we see Feldspar Song says, sometimes a singer would send me a vocal in a stereo format with increasing use of some AI or voice replacement programs. A lot of them ask for a mono file. I know we can export, easier way to do this. So probably the easiest way to, if we have, let's say, a stereo file and we want to convert it to mono, is, I think, probably still going to be the export. A lot of other options could maintain the channel width, like when doing render in place. But if I wanted to turn this stereo file, let's say this is a vocal, I want to turn this into a mono, I would probably just go to the export audio mix down and say, okay, I want to, we could solo just this particular element. And then when we see here, we could say, okay, we want to export as a mono down mix. And then we could select to create an audio track. So as soon as I come right over here, we'll export our stereo audio file. And then if I don't have it muted, that would help. Same. And then you could actually save this as a preset. And now we could have just your stereo be converted to mono. So you could split the channels. That may not give you exactly what you want for if you're importing it into like some third-party tools. So that way you could actually have not just monitoring an audio, but turn that into audio. So again, go to File menu, Export, Audio Mix Down, and you could just choose Export as the mono down mix. And if you just solo that particular track, then you could have a true mono export. Michael Teams is giving 1 gallon of chocolate chip ice cream to Mark Rabin. It's chocolate ice cream isn't good for a dog. All right. See Mark Rabin giving sincere thanks to Jan for the Cubase Index site. So Feldspar Song says, as a tip for other Media Bay, for others, Media Bay will allow you to drag files into other programs as long as you scan the relevant audio folder. See Michael Graybill checking in from Dallas. Yeah, and also just for Michael Teams, I know who had a fire that was close to him. We hope that your house and you and your family are safe. See Michael Graybill also asking to ask earlier. Bratman Studio is also watching a lot of YouTube videos in his retirement. All right, we see Glenn checking in from Suffolk, Virginia. Thanks for joining us, fellow Virginian. All right, so we see from John Berry View, evening Greg and the Cubase family. In the Project Logical Editor, I can toggle bypass inserts and exclude the effects sends. I cannot find a way to exclude the master bus stereo out. Okay, so right, so you said you want to toggle bypass inserts and exclude the effects sends inserts. Okay, so let's say on this track, let's load up a couple of inserts. So, and often what we see, so we'll just add a couple of inserts here. But we don't want to bypass inserts that are effects sends. Okay, so let me add effects send here. We'll add reverence. All right, so when we go to an effects send, our effects send in itself has the insert on the. So I think what John wants to do is to have, if I'm understanding correctly, toggle bypass and okay. I guess maybe I'm so it says, can I find a way to exclude the master bus stereo out? Okay, so let's say okay, so we have effects here. So let's get to our project. So I guess if we have effects on our master bus here, we don't want to bypass these with the logical editor. Okay, so let's say here we have our effects, and so we want to bypass everything except for the effects on the master fader. Okay. So I think that all right, so let's make a project logical editor for this. So I want to okay, so let's see if I mean, I have to do this as a two-step process. So let's say we want to transform. Going to open up just that preset. Okay, so we say, so this is the preset that I'd made. So we're going to say transform And I'm just going to say property is not set to is selected. So let me. So let me just make our mixer. All right. So okay, so let's say I'm going to come over here. We'll turn on different insert effects. You will have an effects channel. So I will. All right, so I have all of my inserts here. All right, so what we want to do, I think what John wants to do is to turn off all of the inserts except for the master bus. So I think if we take that Project Logical Editor preset that we made, so I'm going to just select the master bus before doing this. So we could just say, so we're going to say, let's transform container type is equal to tracks to property, and property is not set to is selected. So what that's going to do is I have this track, so it's going to take, since the other tracks are not selected, then we're going to go to our track operation to enable insert slot by number. And then I have all 16 insert slots, and I have this set to toggle. So now that I have that selected, I could just come right over there. All those other ones will be turned off. So we could toggle. Now, if you don't have that particular channel selected, you could also just say name equals stereo out. I think that this would give us the same say name contains not stereo out. So that way we could say, okay, and this way it could be on any track is selected. So let's say I have this track selected, I run it. Now all of the inserts for the will be bypassed except our stereo out. So if you have like a 3000 track template and you don't have the master out currently selected, you could just make that the condition. So again, we want to transform container type is equal to track name contains not stereo out, or we could say property is not set to is selected. So now when I come over here, we could toggle all of those except for the selected one. So if we have these turned on, so let me know if I'm understanding correct or if I'm misunderstanding, John. But so if you have it selected, you could use that as your condition, and then those are set, and all the R1s you could just toggle back and forth. All right, so we see Mark Rabin just says, hey, speaking of file output export audio, I have a bunch of presets in there for MP3 wave, etc., all different rates, and I have names for them. like project with artist A, Wave 48, etc. So yeah, if you're not familiar with this could save you a lot of time where you could, when you go to your export audio mix down, like I remember, I think I was with at Hans Zimmer Studio when they were working on Dunkirk, and they were always having to do multiple mixes, and I think Christopher Nolan wanted to listen to it while in the car. So, they do like, okay, it's going to be a 96K export, a 48K export, a 16-bit 44.1. And then it was an MP3 export. And that was so that they could send it to Christopher Nolan, I think. So he could put it on his phone and just listen to it in the car. So, but once you have your different formats set up here, you could save these as presets. So you could rename presets, you could save presets. So we could say, okay, we're going to save this as a preset. We'll call it 32-bit 44.1. And then I change this to like an MP3. And then we could save a preset 28K MP3. So, and then, we could add these into the export queue. So we could open up the export queue and I could say, okay, we want this as a 32B 44.1. We'll add that to the queue. Let's go to this preset and say 128K. Let's add that to the queue as well. So now when you do a batch export, we could just simply render to multiple delivery formats all within one at once. And so those can be saved to be recalled. Thanks for mentioning that, Mark. It's a great feature to highlight. I'm going to paste the Zoom link one more time here. See John Koskian joining from Kenosha, Wisconsin, just saying thanks to Greg and the Cubase Nation. So Bratman Studio just says, Greg, how's your weather in your area? I hear flooding out there. So we were supposed to have kind of, it's like recently, last, month or so, there's a lot of where it could be pretty hot during the day and then thunderstorms in the evening, kind of like, but we're supposed to have, thunderstorms last night, but they kind of missed us. So we haven't had any flooding locally where we're at. So we've in kind of an area that misses a lot of kind of dramatic weather, fortunately. Two questions. All right, Beverly Beatty says, Greg, question, does Stream Deck workflow work quite well with Cubase 15 Pro or some pre-made templates? Yeah, so there are some that are commercially available. I'm hoping to show more next week when I'm at Hamburg, like what I've been doing with Stream Deck. But we'll, but there are some that are available as well. So I did kind of a massive Stream Deck template, and I'm kind of in discussions with Steinberg of what to do with it. So hopefully I'll get some answers while I'm in Hamburg. But yeah, it's a convenient thing, especially if you're one that doesn't remember keyboard shortcuts. It could be really helpful. All right, so we see Michael Team says they're still here so far. The fire staying north and west of us. I think they're beginning to win with the winds have settled down a bit and a bit of rain in area. All right. Glad that you're safe. Been in my thoughts the last couple days. All right, so you see from Michael Teams says still having problems with tempo detect. When I go to get to the tempo track, the tempo detection is grayed out. What am I doing incorrectly? So usually when I see that, the part is grayed out, it could be that maybe nothing is selected. So let's say we have this tempo here. All right, so if nothing is selected, I go to my project menu to the tempo track, and since there is nothing selected, you may see your tempo detection. Now, also, what could happen, tempo detection is for a single event. So if I come over here and let's say I duplicate this event here and I have multiple events selected, then when I go to my tempo track under my project menu, it'll be grayed out. But if I select just one of the files, when we go to our tempo track, we'll see that tempo detection is available. So make sure that as you're working with it, that you just have a single event selected, not multiple events, not the track. So right now, if I do the track and no events are selected, then when we go to the tempo track here, you can see that, but as soon as an event is, a single event is selected, then it will become available. So try just selecting a single event on the timeline, not the track that contains a single event, or make sure you don't have multiple events selected, and then you should be able to access the functions. All right, so you see from Beverly Beatty says, I don't have any Mac products, but I like to use some kind of a jog wheel to maneuver left and right on a wave files in Cubase rather than scrolling up and down, zooming in on a mouse. So there are controllers that will have like, jog wheels. So I'm going to use just my, have a CC121. It's always just here that I could just use the wheel to navigate. What a lot of people miss is if you have a numeric keypad on your computer keyboard, you could just use the minus and plus. And then if you hold down shift, you can speed up. So if I'm here and I just hold down the plus on the numeric keypad, do that. But if I hold down the plus and then shift, you can see it kind of goes into a much faster mode. But you could just kind of, so if you have a numeric keypad, I find that a numeric keypad, I really miss not having the numeric keypad when I'm working in Cubase, but just the plus and minus keys here, and many other transport, like the 0 key for stop, the enter key for play, the period key will take you to beginning of the project, your 1 key to the left locator, 2 key to the right locator, other locators 3 through 9. The slash in the numeric keypad will turn on the cycle marker in the transport. You probably see it here as well. The asterisk will allow you to, record directly in there. So lots of great features are available from the numeric keypad. So that might get you over the hump and not having to buy a controller if you're just looking to do kind of, navigation easily on the product, in case you weren't aware of that, Beverly. All right, so we see Roland Stuff joining from Sussex, England. Great to see you back. All right, so we have Alex says, "Hi Greg, I have a MIDI keyboard tray or MIDI keyboard key with velocity stuck at 127. How could I use the project input transformer window to control the velocity on that key, or some other way?" All right, so let's say if we want to like randomize the velocity or decrease the velocity, we could kind of take the 127 value and change that. So let me just come up to, all right, so let's say I want to take this particular note, let's say, I think it's C4. And I'll just verify this note pitch here real quick. Okay, so I want to, let's say C4 is my key that's only outputting velocity of 127. So we will go to our input transformer, and I'll say, okay, I could do this on the track level or the, and let's open the panel. So let's, okay, so we want to transform. We're not going to filter. We're going to transform. The type is equal to notes. We're going to say velocity, or we're going to say our subtype, and subtype will be pitch. And we're going to say is equal to, and then at this point you could just hit the key that instead of typing in the note name once the value is selected. And at that point we want to, we'll say our velocity, we could set to random values between, let's say 56 and 100. So now, so let's say, let's make this a little higher. So now, whenever that key is pressed, so this will take every C4 note that's spitting out a fixed velocity of 127, and you could say, okay, I want this to be between 100 and 120. So that how hard or how soft you hit, it could randomly set it between two known values, or it could subtract. So you could say instead of random values, you could, just come over here, subtract 20, fixed value. So you could, do something along the lines of that. So again, we want to transform, type is equal to note. We're going to select the subtype of a MIDI note message is pitch, and pitch is equal to the note that's misbehaving on your controller. And then we will choose velocity. So basically we're saying every C4 note we want to, what do we want to, so we select what we want to affect here and how we're going to change it at the bottom. So at this point, we will see, okay, so for every C4 note, let's get to the velocity, and we will set random values between 100 and 120. So now no matter how hard or soft I hit it, it'll be a velocity value in that range, and you could change that range as you see fit. So let me know if that's helpful for you, Alex. Great to see you on from Mojave, Arizona. That field jumped. All right, so you see John Barry says perfect with options to that's exactly the info I needed for the bypassing the inserts, not on the master bus. All right, Mark Raven says, are we going to Zoom at the end or how long until we Zoom? So we'll start in about an hour and 13 minutes. Again, we'll have special guest Bob Bullock on. Wonderful guy. Anxious for y'all to meet him, get to know him. So we see from DJ Eric Fox, hey Greg, just want to ask if there's a way to Cubase kind of get Ableton warp mode in the future to be able to import audio song and to be automatically synced to the tempo just like Ableton does. So I think a lot of times, there's a lot of people, that maybe when you import an audio file that they want the audio file to play back at its normal, at the tempo of the original audio file. Once you I realize that in Cubase it's going to be different, that you would do a tempo detection, or if you know what the tempo is, that you could place it into musical mode. And at that point, it will automatically follow your track settings. But I think, I think most Cubase users wouldn't expect, I get a lot of calls when people import an audio file and it's not playing at the right speed, or if it's playing at the wrong sample rate, if it's not playing at the original pitch. So I think that there will be, and perhaps this could change in the future where you get an import options where you could say, okay, automatically import this file to the project tempo. To fit into the project tempo. But if you, just come over to, your loops here, like as you work with audio files, if we have, let's say different audio files here. Let me just see if I have any beats in here. That once you have this mode turned on and you drop a file in, that file is automatically going to play back, at in sync with the project once you have musical mode turned on. So, anything that you just simply, import could automatically be synced, but I think, and I've gotten a lot of questions when people have had something in musical mode and they loaded it in and it's like, it's not playing back at the right tempo. Why is that? It's like, from more of an audio-centric perspective, and I realize if you're a DJ, which I assume you are, if your screen name is DJ Eric Fox, that you may automatically want everything to warp together. But, in more of an audio-centric mentality, it could be a little different. So that's why it's going to be kind of a two-step process, but I'll pass it along as feature input to the team. And, for the future, anything is always possible. It's software-based, so. All right, Mark Raven is wondering if anyone knows of a plugin that takes text and somehow runs math against it and music comes out. There used to be a program, I think it actually just got re-released, called M, where you could kind of draw stuff in with your mouse and music would be generated. So, all right, wonderful to see Captain Energy Music on. I was thinking of you. I drove through Harrisburg area for a wedding a couple weeks ago. And he just says, did you hear Reason Rack becoming free? There's a free version now for Reason. Just thought in case you want to play around with it, you can get it. It's limited. All right, yeah. So I saw one of my friends, I think who works with Lander, just says that's where they were at and had to do it to get attention. So I'll just post on social media. All right, we see that Jazz Dude is a new owner of the Behringer Grind synthesizer since last week. Hope you're enjoying it. It's always fun to get new toys. All right, we see Val joining from Vienna. It says Cubase stream. Just want to say a short hello. Thanks for joining us today. All right, so we see Michael Teams about the tempo detection. It says, okay, got it. Thanks, Greg. It was me as usual. It's easy to make mistakes, so that's why we have erasers on pencils and we have live streams to answer questions, hopefully. See some moderation going on. It's been a while since Jazz Dude's probably had to do that. Thanks for moderation, Jazz Dude. All right, so Rolling Stuff asks, hi Greg, can you get phase/delay problems if daisy chaining groups like female backing Vox group fed into an all backing Vox, which are fed into main Vox group, especially if there are several plugins? Thanks. So it's always going to be delay compensated. So let's go ahead and just we'll build up a chain here. All right, so let's say all right, so we'll just have that sample here. We'll repeat this a couple times. All right, and I'm going to duplicate that track. All right, so let's say, all right, so I'm going to send this to a group. So let's add a group channel. So we'll say female backing Vox. Okay, let's put and plug in on this. All right, so now we'll come here. All right, let's also, let's say we daisy chain into, so I'm going to take that group track, send it into another group track, and we'll say Vox all. And let's say I'll put a latent plugin on it. So let's say the vocal chain. Okay, so right now we have this, which is going to our main stereo output. So, all right, so we see, all right, and now let's add and we'll compare that, which is going straight to our stereo out, and we'll compare that to our tracks that are going into a group with a compressor plugin, and then that group is being fed into another group with the vocal chain plugins. It's about 300 milliseconds of latency with the plugin path. So as we listen to it, we hear some of the delays from that preset. So even if I wanted to come here and we bypass the vocal chain, so it's still, so that latency is still on the system. So we'll come over here. Let's just got our latency of the signal path is 236 milliseconds. So when I come over here, so but no phasing, timing issues. So wherever the plugin is instantiated, it's automatically compensated for throughout the entire signal path. Jazz Dude sharing the contour design, which is a little USB kind of jog wheel controller. So we see Del Sir Music says, hello, Greg. Have you done a review of the controller CC1 or anyone knows how to learn more about it? So I had one for a while. You know, I switched roles in July to working directly with Steinberg, and I had to send some of my Yamaha equipment back. So including a CC1. So, but yeah, I mean, it works great. So think of it, what a lot of people would use like a single channel controller. So it's going to have transport. I would say that the fader feels exceptionally good on it. And you know, transport, you have some knobs and also like 12 Stream Deck type buttons so that you could, you know, have user configurable actions that you could do. So, and you could customize those, and it comes with a number of different options as well that are available. So, but I don't have one to show. Sorry about that. All right, I'm going to paste the Zoom social link again. All right, so we see from John Patterson Music, it says, Greg, I had a bad experience with 15 Pro in Tahoe, only M2 Studio a couple months ago, so I reverted back to Sequoia. Image dropouts, lagging, etc. Is it safe to update now based on your experience? So I haven't run into, you know, I would say it's been always running stable even on, I haven't tried, you know, I had an M4 before with Cubase 15, and then with Cubase 14, 13 and 14, it was when I had my M1 computer and I didn't have any problems. You can make sure that, you know, it's actually, you know, maybe particular plugins, you know, let me know if you have, I think you'd be safe. I mean, we utilize all of the different processing cores, make sure that you are running it not in, you know, you could get enhancements, performance benefits and enhancements. If, you know, by default, Cubase will open up in native Apple Silicon mode. So make sure you're not doing Rosetta. Usually if it's going to be kind of like image dropouts, it could be, you know, maybe related to a plugin or, you know, like the audio performance. If you have like one track with 15 plugins on it, then that, you know, may overload the audio performance. But, you know, but I think you should be fine without any issues. I've run huge projects on my M1, and you know, I think we did a live stream. I did it with some of my colleagues at Yamaha with the, you know, with the ESP plugin, which is kind of like the montage in a VST instrument. And, you know, we got like over 1,000 voices playing on my M1. So I don't think you would have any issues with it. All right, so we see Rick says, weird occurrence, Halligan 7.5, loaded a sound, say Flux Tropical beach, not specific to sound. Tap the 5 buttons, micro options, press options. I get a licenses hanging error, close that, and press E, and the Halligan 7 comes back, and now it works and shows as activated. So we'll just take a quick look, see if Flux, I think Flux is actually part of the Cubase license. So let's just come over here. All right, so you said you want to come over to so let's say we have our sound. So, and just tap the micro. Let's try the same preset. Tropical beach. I'm not sure if it's, and it could be depending on the options, but check to make sure also if you have the latest, everything seems to kind of work here as expected, but it can't hurt to make sure that you have the latest license activation software. It's usually updated, but sometimes reinstalling it if you run into issues, maybe that would help. All right, we see Nick on. Is Rasta Nick says, "Hi guys, just popping in. He's going to try to make the Zoom media up later. Not sure if you'll have the time. Busy whacking the like button now. I hope you're well. Thanks for popping in." See, Chaz Dude says it wasn't him that did the moderation. The secret agent K lurking and doing his magic. See, rolling stuff. Says, thanks for explaining the latency compensation, Greg. For some reason, I never really caught up with that before. Till now. Cheers. See, Mark Raven just says, my wife called from upstairs telling me that voice was freaking her out. Note to self, to get wife's attention, omnivocals beta. All right, great to see Sable on from Bay Area, California. All right, so we see from Prithasan, how can I mix the piano in Cubase so that it seems like the left side sound is coming and the right side sound is coming slowly with Stereo Shaper? All right, so let's just open up a piano project here. Quick solo piano. So I'll have a piano in it. All right, let me just ambience on. All right, so let's see. So how can I mix the piano and Cubase so it seems like the left side sound is coming and the right side sound is coming slowly? Great. Let's see if we come over here to the stereo combined panner. I'm not sure. So like the left side sound is coming and the right side sound is coming slowly. So I'm not sure if we come over here, so let's say, like we can take the piano. And so once I right click on my, we have a balance panner, which will allow me to kind of pan, like one single control for panning. But there's also, if you right click on a stereo source, like stereo track, we could go to our stereo combined panner. So let me know. I'm not sure exactly. It says when the left side sound is coming and the right side sound is coming slowly. So it could be like maybe we have this piano playing, we have the pan here, and then we could just hold the left mouse button down and extend the piano over. So this way we could kind of take our stereo panning independently. And if I want to bring the right channel over, or kind of take this source here, even though it's my stereo, we could pan it like that. Or if we have it kind of pan to the left and you want to bring the right in, you just hold down the left mouse button and make it true stereo, and then I could bring the left channel over to the right. Or we could do the opposite. And then even if you wanted to reverse the panning, if you just go up, when you see the panner get inverted, you could just flip the left and right channels. So let me know if that's kind of what you want to do, or not, just let me know and I'll try to figure it out. All right, so you see from Bratman Studio, it says Tropical Beach has 5 buttons on mine and the option button. So it could depend on which mode you start. So let me just try to open up Halligan 7 again, and I'll try just maybe the screen set. So try different screen set. Here, when I come over to options, so if it looks like this for you, so say, so, but maybe it's, if this is the options button that you're running into, I don't think that would trigger. So you have, come over here, you can look at your performance meter. So, Rick, let me know if this is the options button that you're referring to. All right, so John Barry VU. Let me just clear my throat here. Give me a second. All right, asks, so John Barry VU asks, if I have a compressor with sidechain but no sidechain filter, can I use a send to an unconnected empty track and filter and use this track to feed the sidechain? I think so, and it could be if you're using it from a group track. So let's come over here. See if we could. I think I have a side chain set up in this project. Okay, so say we have a side chain here. All right, so let's say we want, like in here we have like a kick and bass. All right, so I'm gonna put a side chain on this source. So let's say on this, I'm gonna create a group channel. Okay, so on this group channel, so I'm going to go to, let's say I want this bass sound to be sidechained. Just going to reread this again. So we use a send to an unconnected empty track and add a filter and use this track to feed the sidechain. All right, so I'm going to come over to the compressor here and let's set the sidechain to our let's see if we could set it to, I'll make sure I have the name right. All right, so to sidechain here. Okay, I'll just call this sidechain group. Okay, so this input here, we'll add a sidechain input. So here's our sidechain group. Okay, so let's say now, so if I take this kick track, and I'm going to take this kick track and let's just go to our sends here, and we'll send this to our group. Great, so now there's not much side chaining as I send a signal to the group. Get more side chaining. Let me just loop that portion. So if you wanted varying amounts, all right, make sure I'm understanding this. But no sidechain filter, can I use this send on an unconnected empty track? So let me know if that works for you, and then even if you wanted to modulate the amount of sidechain on, I could come over here. Let's choose our kick track, and then I want to modulate so you could just modulate the amount of the side chain if you want. So let me know if that's kind of what you want to accomplish, John, or if I'm misunderstanding. But you could, create a group, send that sidechain group, and set that as a source, and then feed multiple tracks into that and adjust the amount of the sidechain using the send. And then if you wanted to modulate that send, so you could have randomized or pattern-based sidechain amounts, you could do that as well. All right, so we see from Alex says, thanks, Greg, doesn't seem to work for the Renegade key. To what extent is this then a hardware issue? So it's obviously a hardware issue if it's only outputting one fixed velocity. If all the keys are outputting different levels of velocity except for that one key, that would lead me to think that it's going to be kind of a hardware malfunction on that. And make sure that you actually have kind of the right key that's selected. So, because if you have the wrong key selected, that may make a difference as well. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of a hardware issue if it's only transmitting. We could have Cubase kind of take the incoming MIDI message and, transform it. But make sure you have the right pitch selected. It's easy to not have the correct pitch selected in the input transformer. Putting the wrong thing. All right. Again, when you come here, we want to transform. Type is equal to notes, subtype, and, click here so that's highlighted, and then hit the key, whatever key is acting up, and then you try to subtract, 20 levels of velocity. Then whatever velocity you're hitting should be decreased, but make sure you have that pitch set. And a good way of doing that is just to highlight the pitch, so you see kind of it's like a little bit of an aqua background, and then you could hit the key on your MIDI keyboard. That will determine the pitch. All right, so we see Klaus just saying he didn't hear the stereo effect. Let me know if other people heard it. They're monitoring. All right, so we see from John Barry, says that's great, perfect. Thanks for interesting questions you always have. All right, Tim Weinheimer from Mission Viejo asks, I have general MIDI file project that uses Hallion to play the instruments of the song. How can I get a MIDI signal out of Hallion to drive an instrument track outside of Hallion in the project for drum C10? Okay, so if see if I don't think I have just a generic MIDI file. But let's say when we import a MIDI file, depending on your Cubase preferences, or I'll just create one quickly here. Use Halion Sonic. Great. Let me just export. Okay, so let me just take pattern here. All right, let's set our tempo to 88. We will. So I'm going to have this, and we'll say drums. And we'll just add a simple bass part, and we'll export this MIDI file. All right, so let's say we have okay, so let's say we'll call this bass. Create a name over. Okay, so I want to export this as a MIDI file. Okay, so I'm going to check my preferences here. And when we get an import file, I'm going to make sure that we have it set to Halion Sonic Multitimbral. Close this project. Let's import MIDI file. All right, so now when we come here, let me just change change this to channel 2, this to channel 10, then export again. Sorry about that. So now that we have this, all right, so let's import that MIDI file, new project, or now we have the appropriate MIDI channels in there. All right, so so you're going to get it. How can I get a MIDI signal out of Hallion to drive an instrument track outside of the Hallion? So for the drums, all right. So what I would do is just select when you select the track and you have the VST instrument selected here, you can see that automatically will change that. And then what I would do is click in the name. So we take, and I want to take this name here. All right. So click in the name field and then say, okay, I want this to play back in Groove Agent SE, and load up your sound here. And now the MIDI, instead of playing back through Hallion, and we may have to just switch. Let me just try that one more time here. All right, because it's going to be a MIDI file. All right, so all right, we'll just do this one more time from scratch to just watch. All right. And I'm just going to confirm my preference setting one more time. All right, so if we had this set to Hallion Sonic Multitimbral, which is probably what it is by default. Okay. All right, so when I select this, we see that this is going to, all right, so this is all going into the same instance of Hallion Sonic. So it's a multi-timbral instance where we have our drums set up, and on channel 10 will be for our stereo GM kit. So I would probably just add an instrument track here and then just copy down. Now, if you accidentally move it, so I'm going to hold down my Alt key to make a copy, and then if I move it downward or upward first, then hold down Control or Command. So what I could do is just undo that. So I will take this and move that to the Groove Agent track. So because it's going to create MIDI. You could also, if you want it to be easier, if you're importing the MIDI file again, you could just have it go straight to instrument tracks as well. Then you could just kind of swap out one instrument for another instrument. So now that I have this set up, we could copy that down. So check what your actual preference is on your input stage. So if you're already kind of committed into a project, you need to change it, I would add the instrument and copy the data down to it. All right. So you see from Bratman Studios says Greg did it again, pressed all 5 buttons at top in order and hit the option button and an e-licenser error occurred. It says e-licenser initialization is hanging. Now if I turn it off and see if it will reset. So it could be that maybe it's looking for an old, like, make sure that you have installed, when you go to the Steinberg download assistant, if that was installed with the e-licenser based version of Cubase, like 11 and earlier, and maybe you didn't update it, make sure that you come over here because I think Flux is one of the standard instruments. But try to go to the e-licenser and just download the Flux again. I think it's a separate install, or it could be part of the VST sound. So show you here, because it could be that it's looking for an e-license, like maybe you didn't update it since version 11 or earlier. Bear with me just for a second. So it could be looking for the e-licenser first, and then maybe it sees the Cubase license depending on where you originally installed it from. So maybe you didn't run the updated installer. So let's just see if we go to Cubase Pro 15 and Flux is included here. So try you just download like the Hallian Sonic selection content right here, and I think that would include the Flux. So I would just reinstall that because I think it's maybe looking for the Flux license is maybe being triggered from like a Cubase 11 or earlier version, something that was utilizing e-licenser, and try restarting that and see if it makes sense. Great. All right, so you see Beverly just asking if something is in stereo. So let me just set up quick test here. It's like everything should be broadcasting in stereo, but let me. And I'll take a quick listen to it on my monitoring computer. So let me just. All right, I'm gonna put it on my. Listen to it on my monitoring computer. Give me a second. Yeah, sounds like one channel may be out. Let me just. All right, so let me see when I go to my OBS, play it. Looks like OBS is not carrying it over. Let me just. Let's see if I change that. All right, I'll do some more research on it before the next live stream. Just gonna listen to that real quick, see if that made a difference. Just waiting for the lag to catch up here. That made a difference. All right, almost there. Just getting a point where, see if I do the down mix. And let me check one other area here. Yeah, seems like it's an OBS issue. I'll do some more research on that. Sorry. Annoying. All right, jump back. All right, Daniel Pashman asks, hey Greg, how do you bounce when you have a summing mixer and can only print onto an audio track? It's not letting me export my printed audio track for some reason. So if you're utilizing a summing mixer, you know, one is you could just capture it onto an audio track. So take the outputs, take the summing mixer, and record that back in. What some people also do is just to utilize it and create an audio connections and go to external effects. And then when you're doing the external effects, you know, we could make it a, you know, you could have different external effects, and then you could have just the return channel coming back. So if we do this as a stereo in, stereo out, but you know, it's kind of the nature of the, you know, summing mixer. So if you would have to record it in real time. That's why you're running through a summing mixer. If it is connected through like an external effect, you could then place it on the master effects, and then that could send, you know, capture all the signals back. But you may have to have, you know, depending on your summing mixer, you know, you may have to have, you know, to take the stereo output and use that as an external effect if you want it to be incorporated. You know, it's just kind of the nature of a summing mixer. Great. You see Gerald Ely can't stay for the Zoom, but he can hang out for a bit. Yeah, and you see Jazzu, maybe I don't think I have the control rooms at the mono because everything is Yeah, so everything is in stereo as I'm playing it on my end. So it seems like kind of maybe an OBS. I'll do some more research on it. Great. All right, so we see from Bratman Studios says Greg turned off Howling in 7.5 and tried it with Howling in Sonic, and it did not error, only the big boy errors. Guys, you're just commenting how good the Cubase General MIDI sound set is. All right, so we see Tim Weinheimer says, I did that, Greg, but I wanted to know if I could get a MIDI signal out of Halion for each channel like you could with old hardware sequencer and keyboards connected with MIDI cables. Yeah, so it doesn't have a MIDI output from, like Halion doesn't have like a MIDI through or an output patch. There may be some link back like software, like if you get loopback.be, that may allow you to send the output, but Halion doesn't. Like most virtual instruments don't have a MIDI output, just an input source. So it's going to behave a little differently than hardware. Right, I'm just going to go ahead and paste the Zoom meetup. Will be starting in about 15 minutes. Again, we'll have special guest Bob Bullock. All right. So we see, hi Greg, greetings from LA. Is it possible to change the automatic suffix of bracket R bracket after you render an event to something else? So we can replace that. So let's say if I do a quick render in place of a file. Okay, so let's say I take these files here. Let's do render in place. And we'll just do this as one event. All right, so now we have this symbol here indicating that it is kind of parenthesis R, so indicating that it is rendered. So if you go to the project logical editor setup, we could say, so let's say we want to delete so let's say we'll transform, and then we'll say media type equals audio, and we'll say so let's come over here. So we're going to take an audio track, and for the name, we could see replace search string. So let's say we go to bracket R. I think let's say we say hoy boy. See if that would. Right, so we look at the name here on this track. So you could replace it, you could delete it. So we could replace the R, or, if you just come over here, we wanted to replace it with you could append, prepend, generate name, erase before or after, or just simply replace it with something else. So if you wanted to, remove just that rendered indication, you do it using the project logical editor. All right, so you see Tim Weinheimer just says that answers my question. All right, we had another question that was mailed in. Let me get to that. All right, so we had a question: how to start adding instrument? How to automate a plugin turning off and on. Okay, so let's say we have audio playing here. So let me just. All right, so let's say on our group channel, I want to, for my drums, I wanted to automate maybe let's put a envelope shaper on. So let me just put this in a loop. Channel, so we'll come over here. All right. All right, so if I wanted to automate a plugin turning off and on, I would just kind of come over here. So let's say I'm going to enable write on the automation. So we don't necessarily turn like the plugin on and off, but what we could do is bypass the plugin. So let's say we want to bypass the plugin and then bring it in. So let's say as we're playing, so now we'll bring it in. Bypass it. Now we have the automation. We could just have the effect going in and out, automate it, and again, just using so again, it's not necessarily the off button, but the bypass. And when we do that, it automatically maintains any of the latency that's happening so that when the plugin is just turned on and off, it doesn't have to have any hiccups with like gaps in the audio when automating plugins. Okay, so another question that was mailed in. Just the size of my screens. Okay, hello Greg. I am trying to do an Atmos setup and have an Apollo X, 8 outputs, and an Apollo X6, 6 outputs. Normally, if you have an interface dedicated for Atmos, the master knob volumes takes care of all system. In my case, the X8 does not control the volume of the Apollos together. Is there a way to create a main volume drive in Cubase 15 Pro to control? Do main monitoring level. I do not have I do also have a controller CC1 and a CC121. It could be assigned as well. if you have, I'm not sure if both of them will be able to output audio under the same driver. If that's the case, what I would do is just go into your control room. So we would go to your studio menu to audio connections. Let's go to the control room. We will add, let's say, let's remove that. I'm going to add monitor. Let's make this a 714 monitor. Okay, so we'll say this is our Atmos monitor. Great. Great. And now let's say if I switch my add an output bus. So let's say I think I'm here and I'm going to set that as main mix. So now when I come over here to my Atmos monitor, so now my control room should control all of the channels there. So, but we would need to, in your control room, pop right over here and set all of your output connections. So I'm not sure if, sometimes if it's a USB interface, you may not be able to daisy chain them. If it's a Thunderbolt interface, Thunderbolt interfaces do have the capability of daisy chaining, so you could run, or not daisy chaining, but so that you could run multiple devices, of the same type. So you could run like two Apollos or two AXR4T interfaces together. But you would probably need to just come over here and set the mapping for 1 through 8 and 1 through, and 1 through 4 on your secondary interface. And that's assuming that the Apollo driver allows you to output audio or to run multiple devices with a single ASIO or core audio driver. You could do some stuff like, aggregate devices, but it probably, or if you're on Windows, something like, if you needed to use something like, ASIO for all, those aren't ideal and will kind of fall out of sync. But once you have that set up, we can just set the outputs here in your VST, in your audio connections under your control room. So set the outputs there where they need to go. And if you have a CC121, we could come right over here. Let's get to your studio setup, and we will select your CC121. And I always use where we see kind of the knob above the 4 buttons on the upper right-hand corner. Instead of sending that to my main mix, I think it defaults to the metronome label. I set that to control my control room. So as I come over here now and I move the CC121 knob, it's controlling my control room, and I could just push it in to mute. So let's say as I'm playing along, I could push in the control room to mute, but that will allow you to just quickly have one knob in your CC121 to control the overall volume of all of your outputs for monitoring. All right, let's jump back to live questions. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. We're going to migrate over to the Zoom. Let's see if we get one more quick question in. Gerald Ely says bypassing of a VSTs is tip of the day. So we see from Alex, just says, thanks, Greg, I'll play around with it. But even with the velocity subtracted 30, if I hot hard, the velocity still goes up to 127. Yeah, so if it's just one key, then it's probably just, an issue with your MIDI controller, I would assume. So that's what it kind of seems like. And try on a brand new project and see if there's any project settings that can make a difference. All right, so looks like we are out of questions. So again, quick programming notes. I will be away on business in Hamburg next week and won't be doing the live streams next week and the following Tuesday. Our next live stream will be set up on for, I believe it's September 11th. And we'll do our 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Hopefully it won't be too jet lagged. But so that will be the next live stream. We'll go ahead and start our Zoom social meetup. So let me just migrate over. I'm going to paste the Zoom meeting invite. And again, Bob Bullock will be our special guest. Fascinating guy. So I will go ahead and start the meeting. I'll just... All right, so we have a number of people. Rob Schmedeke. Lewis. Marshall. Alex. Tim Weinheimer. See Nick. Guys, dude on. Hey, how's it going? All right, we see Rick. No. What controller is it? All right, you see Bob joining? Yeah. 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 Hey. Yep, we can hear you, Bob. I'm going to go ahead and just turn my light on real quick. Otherwise, I look like I'm orange. Okay, I'm going to... All right. All right. All right. So, Klaus, I think we're hearing the talk come back from you. Yeah, no problem. All right. We'll get give it a couple minutes. Get people. We don't have your camera. Yep. Okay. Great to see you, Bob. Now I think we're hearing from Michael Teams. Maybe that's his speaker. I just have like lights above me to make me look orange. So yeah. 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 I didn't go to Destin like Bob. So yeah. All right, we have some more people. Let me just let them in. All right. Yeah. Great. We'll give it a couple more minutes and I'll end the live stream. About 2 more minutes. Let some people migrate on. So how have you been, Bob? Yeah, where are you going to? Oh, nice. Yeah, good. So. Okay, I'll wait one more minute and I'll end the live stream. So we'll just hang out with some. Yeah, yeah, that's better. Yeah, yeah. All right, we see Sable on. You see Sable has having camera problems. She mentioned. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream. So again, we'll be back on the live stream starting September 11th. Good day for the comeback. All right. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and end the live stream and migrate over to the Zoom. Great. So live stream is over. All right. Great to see everyone. Thanks, Bob, for joining us.